New polling out this morning from the New York Times showing Vice President Kamala Harris with a 5-point lead in Arizona, a 2-point lead in North Carolina, and gaining ground in both Nevada and Georgia. So these results, they're all within the margin of error. But folks, it's a sign that with Kamala Harris, it may not be momentum, but a movement. And for Donald Trump, it just may be a warning. Joining me now is Tara Setmayer, co-founder and CEO of the Seneca Project and a former comms director for the GOP. Tara, we're 80 days out. I mean, we really are in that crunch time. Polls like the one we just mentioned are showing Vice President Kamala Harris leading in some of those battleground states and also in national polls. Now, everybody who watches the Katie Phang Show knows I'm not a huge fan of polls, but I will show them if there shows a consistency of what's going on. And I mean, Tara, this is something that we can't ignore here, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're all skeptical of polls. The polling industry has been less than stellar the last couple of election cycles. However, what does prove to be true are trends. And the swings since Kamala Harris has joined this race to now are undeniable. And what we're seeing, and especially places like Arizona, that's encouraging for me because what's happening in Arizona, there is a ballot initiative with abortion on the ballot in Arizona where they just had a record-setting amount of signatures to get that initiative qualified on the ballot. That is telling you that the issue of women's rights and women's reproductive health and the idea of keeping the government out of their medical exams and out of their bedrooms and out of their personal decisions is resonating across the country. And you can see in other states where even Nevada, that also has a ballot initiative as well. You can see where this is galvanizing women because they're looking at their choices here. Women are looking at the choice between Donald Trump, who has a history of calling them crazed, unhinged, nasty, and everything else, the litany of issues with Donald Trump. And then you have J.D. Vance, who has managed to offend every demographic of women, from cat ladies to older women. This is not a good sign for a presidential campaign that needs those moderate swing state voters, particularly women, if they think they're going to win. So it's absolutely obvious that Kamala Harris not only has momentum, but there's a vibe. There is a vibe and mood shift in this campaign that we have not seen since 2008. And I can say that now after we've seen consistently the enthusiasm, the excitement, the joy, the hopefulness, the decency. All of these things are attractive to the American people, and the polls are reflecting that in all the right places for Kamala Harris.
So I'm glad you brought up J.D. Vance. This man, he has a very special, I'll use that adjective, way with words, especially when it deals with women. Take a really quick listen.
We're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices that they've made, and so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too.
They spoil him. There's sort of all the classic stuff that grandparents do to grandchildren, but it makes him a much better human being to have exposure to his grandparents.
Well, I don't know.
And the evidence on this, by the way, is like super clear.
That's the whole purpose of the postmenopausal female in theory. But let me ask you a question, not knowing the answer.
Please.
When your child was born, did your in-laws, and particularly your mother-in-law, show up in some huge way?
She lived with us for a year.
Right.
So, you know.
So I didn't know the answer to that.
Right. No.
That's this weird unadvertised feature of marrying an Indian woman.
No,
I mean, Tara. So J.D. Vance brought on board to theoretically court a wider audience, a younger audience, maybe even a female audience, but none of that works.
I don't know what female audience that caters to other than Puritans that think that we should be back. Maybe I shouldn't offend the Puritans, but people who think that we should be back in an era where women didn't have autonomy, have rights, couldn't, work without the permission of a man. All of those things. I'm sorry, but women are not going back. And that's what we are doing at the Seneca Project with our messaging to women. We're seeing that there are so many women across party lines that share that sentiment. They may have voted for Donald Trump or Republicans in the past, but they're looking at this ticket. They're looking at those types of comments, and they're saying not no, but hell no. What is wrong with these people? We're not doing this. And J.D. Vance, I don't know who he's attracting with that. Maybe the younger incel demographic that hates women. I mean, it was Donald Trump who had Nick Fuentes for lunch at Mar-a-Lago, who despises women and is a Nazi. So That's the other side. That's what we're dealing with on the MAGA side. They're misogynists. They ooze the misogyny all the time. Donald Trump, and the reporting is showing this, it's completely unraveled. He cannot handle the fact that he may lose to a woman and a woman of color. He can't handle it. So we're watching this every single day. People are wish casting on the Republican side that he stays on message. Well, his message is his disdain for women and for women of color. That's why he consistently insults women and has for his entire career, and is also an adjudicated rapist. There's that part too.
You know, Tara, let's talk about surrogates, though, outside of the J.D. Vances of the world. We see somebody like Nancy Mace, and I had to bring this up because it still bothers me so much that Nancy Mace, as a surrogate for Donald Trump and the Trump campaign, ends up on another network saying that she will call Kamala Harris whatever she wants to pronounce her name however she wants to do it. It bothers me because not only is it a macro aggression against minorities, but it's just racist to sit there and actually know how to pronounce her name properly. She's the vice president of the United States. But that is kind of thematically on point for them, right? That's exactly kind of how they think they can control the narrative, is by saying, we're going to dictate what your value is based upon the given name that you have.
Yeah, Nancy Mace is a perfect example of someone who was a backbencher that has now turned herself into this MAGA fembot for attention. Nobody paid attention to Nancy Mace as much as since she's become this really obnoxious MAGA apologist. And as a woman, she tries to claim victimhood when people call her out. I wish I had been on that panel because she wouldn't have been able to get away with that. How would she have felt if I sat there and called her Karen the whole time while she was insulting our vice president and soon to be future president of the United States? And I could say, I can call you whatever I want to call you. She wouldn't have taken too kindly to that. It's disrespectful, and she knows it, but she doesn't care because she's emboldened by this part of this obnoxious indecency and entitlement, frankly, that comes from these people who support MAGA. Is that really, I mean, there are, they're not always, you don't always have women allies. Let's just say that. Cognitive dissonance is a hell of a drug, and so is attention and power.